And we're live. There we go. No big intro tonight, guys. I'm sorry, I didn't. Davis and I were talking, so I didn't bother to do the intro. For it's how organised I am. Now the thing is, right? If we do an intro to it, which is usually just like one of my Trons playing or the friggin' the WRA thing, you and I can't talk until it fires up.
Yep.
So it'd just be you and I sitting each other, looking at each other in stunned silence for about a minute and a half while it plays.
I think
screw that.
I think when I did Piers podcast, that's what he has cracking is like the little video intro. So there's you're kind of sitting in the background there, and then all of a sudden you're live.
Yeah, Piers has got the good one though. He's got the one where he's got like a whole lobby something, so you can go off and
that's
you
right.
pay extra for it. And I'm too stingy for that. I'm like LeBron. I won't even pay for Spotify.
Yeah, man. Yeah, gotta save those dollars where you can, man.
So how are you? Jeez,
mate, it's been a week, hasn't it?
Hasn't it though?
Been a week.
Bloody hell.
Look, honestly, it's probably not the right thing to say, but I'm fine, mate. It's more the impact that this has on the people around me that concerns me as far as my own health goes. I feel fine. Mentally I feel fine. My immediate thought as soon as diagnosis came through was, what holes does this put on my life? And how do I work about getting around those and getting back to work, not being able to drive. How do I get to and from work? Can I work? Do people that work in areas of physical fitness, do they want a guy walking around in what looks like a mechanical suit holding his neck together? Do they even want that on the floor? Is that a good look for a gym? Is that a good look for a parkour center? So, I had to touch base with all my bosses, and luckily they've been really supportive. There's a few PTs that I kind of can't get to. It's just too much to Uber out there to make it worthwhile in terms of the time and money that I'll earn while I'm there. But all the bosses that I work for have been super supportive, and man, like mentally, I'm all good, man. I try not to look at things in terms of good and bad. It's all just part of the ride. And over the course of your life, there's going to be moments that are great, and there are going to be moments that aren't so great. And you need to respond to both of them in the best way that you possibly can. When the tough times come, you've got to try and ride it out and do the best that you can. And when things get high, you want to enjoy it, but you want to remind yourself, hey, tough times are going to come again. Don't, try not to let the ego get out of control. Try not to let yourself go so much that you lose touch with reality, particularly in our industry where, you can very much start to believe your own hype and believe your own bullshit. Just trying to keep a steady head, no matter what the circumstances are, has carried me pretty well in life. So,
yeah, well, I first off, I have to apologize to you because you told me the other day, and because we were talking about something else at the time, I had completely, I must have just glazed over that. And it wasn't until I went back to, when I messaged you today, I've gone, holy shit, he told me and I friggin' missed it. Oh my God. How much of a bad person am I? Well, so I do apologize for that.
No. And to be honest, it was the day that Kristen passed was when I got the news about my neck as well. And, I would rather be in this horrible position with my neck and have never gotten that news as long as I lived. But that news very much helped me keep things in perspective throughout the day. And I was being bounced around from department to department. And the news changed several times. Once at 1 minute I'm being told you're fine. The next minute I'm being sent home. The next minute I'm getting a phone call being told to rush myself to the emergency department of like a spinal trauma unit. So the news kept bouncing up and down. But just knowing you know, what Kristen had been through and what James was going through with Kristen's passing, it just helped me keep everything in perspective that, you know, no matter what I was dealing with, it was very temporary. And what they were dealing with was definite, you know. And she'll be tremendously missed. I had spoken to Jay just a week prior, and we're about to take a family holiday to the US. And my plan was that once I got back from the States, I was going to find a way to get over there so that I could visit. And unfortunately, that won't come to be at this time. So, yeah, man, it's you know, again, it's the most horrible news you could possibly hope to hear, but it really did help me keep my head on my shoulders this week.
Yeah. So, like, going back, what happened with your neck? Because, like, all of sort of out of the blue, you're in this thing, and it's like, what the hell happened, mate?
So we had a show a couple of weeks back. Took a German suplex, and as I took it, landed very high. And, you know, myself and Marcus Pitt are this amazing combination of, you know, we really like to take our wrestling to the edge, and he's so bloody strong. And I'm a little bit reckless with my body, to be kind. Just the way I've always fallen, particularly in being thrown backwards, I do have a tendency to throw my legs too high. And, you know, when you get away with it over and over and over again over the course of 22 years, I think some part of you starts to think that you're just going to walk away from all of these. And you kind of forget how close we walk to the edge sometimes. That's my dog. He's very unhappy at the moment. But yeah, you forget how close we skate to the edge in trying to do things the way that we do. And as soon as I took this German, I felt hot fire shoot down both sides of my spine. And, you know, most wrestlers would know, you feel something in the match, you know, with all the adrenaline kicking, anything that you manage to feel during a match is generally going to hit you pretty hard. So felt quite uncomfortable for the rest of the evening. And then after that, you know, I did all the right things, heat pack at night, tried to make sure that I slept in a comfortable position. And I felt pretty good after that, to be honest. I thought I would wake up an absolute mess in the morning. And I didn't really wake up any worse than I was the night before. So that gave me a fair bit of pause. Had an ice bath late on the Sunday. So I felt like, okay, we're taking care of this. This shouldn't be a problem. Back in the gym Monday morning, pushing the regular weights, not feeling too bad. That week, me and Slater were running a fundamentals camp from Monday to Thursday. When I tried to bump, I felt an almighty jolt in my back. But sometimes that EPW training school ring can be a little bit on the stiff side too. So I didn't think much of it, but I then just tried to avoid bumping for the rest of the day. And then in all the days that I went back, you know, we were doing some heat drills and stuff like that, but I wasn't exactly being bounced from pillar to post. But I was still wrestling, lifting people, hitting the corners, hitting the buckles, hitting the ropes, really simple stuff. Felt okay for the majority of the week. And then on the Friday, did a bit of a chain wrestling session with some of our boys on a Friday night. And the particular drill that I was doing with them, a lot of front rolling, and I was rolling over this shoulder constantly. And that's kind of where my nerve pain started. I went home that night, felt a little bit uncomfortable, but went to sleep, thought it would be okay. And then just woke up in absolute screaming pain in the middle of the night. So that was the start of, you know, something's not quite right here. I need to work out what's going on. Got to the first doctor, and the first doctor did a few structural tests and strength tests, and was pretty happy and just patted me on the bum and sent me back out the door. And then I went to see a physio later in the week because things weren't traveling particularly well. I was still getting a lot of pain at night, having trouble sleeping more than two or 3 hours at a time. needing to sleep on the couch and kind of raise my arm up over my head like so, because otherwise the pain I was getting in my arm was just too much for me to go to sleep. So yeah, went to the physio. Physio said he wasn't happy with what the doctor had told me and to go see another doctor. So I went back to my family doctor. He's quite hard to get in to see because he's a pretty popular doctor. Managed to get in with him later in the week. He said immediately, I want to send you for scans. Went for the scans and kind of went through the same process again of went for the MRI. During the MRI, the radiologist said, I think I'm seeing something here. I want you to do a CT scan as well. Did the CT. He called me into the office and he said, hey, look, I can see your ligaments are strained. I can see this, I can see that. But I think as far as a break, we're fine. Sent me on my way. Said the doctor will get the results on Friday. 20 minutes later, I'm at the shops and I get a call from my GP saying radiologist changed his mind. He's found something that he isn't happy with and he wants you to go straight to the emergency department of a hospital called St. Charlie Gardner here in Perth. And they had they've got a head trauma unit. It turns out he actually should have sent me to Royal Perth where they have a spinal trauma unit. But I think because the break is quite high, he thought head trauma rather than spine. So I ended up at Charlie Gardner's and then again, back through the same process of we think it's okay. No, there's definitely a break. They put the first brace on me and then we're going to send me on my way and then called me back and felt that because the fracture's in the C7, which is right at the bottom of the cervical part of the spine, and they're worried that forward movement with just the brace, that potentially forward movement of bending forward, I would still be able to injure the part that they're worried about. So called me back, put that on me, sent me on my way again, called me back again. They need one more x-ray. It just didn't seem to end. But as I
said, almost to the point where, like, look, I'm not going to leave. I'm just stay here for a while, all right? When you guys make your mind up for sure, then I'll leave.
Just give me a seat, give me a blanket. I'll just sit here with my book and my tea and just push me out the door when you're done with me.
Jeez. So you must have been going through all sort of like range of emotions when it comes to like, you're okay, no, you're not, no, you're okay, no, you're not. You must have been just like, can you please tell me one way or the other? I just need to know what the hell's going on.
I tried to be quite level with it, and I was very fortunate. The doctor that I was dealing with at Charlie's, he was fantastic. Couldn't have been cooler with me. I can tell you 100% that the video of me taking the German was a hit with all the medical staff at Charlie Gardner's that day. There were people coming in who had nothing to do with my case whatsoever going, I hear you got a video. So, yeah.
I suppose that is the one good thing about wrestling. You can actually show what happened. This is what happened.
Right. There's always footage, right? Someone's always taking footage. So, yeah, it's great. At least when tragedy occurs, there's plenty of evidence, right?
Oh, jeez. So what's the sort of the timeline for a recovery, and how much of a recovery are they saying, or aren't they saying at the moment?
I've not spoken to the specialist at the spinal trauma unit yet. I've got to go in to see them, but as I said, I'm just about to head off on a family holiday, so I probably won't get to see them until I get back from the US. The blanket rule with a neck break is 4 months in the brace, and then whatever recovery and rehab time is associated with that. The physio that I spoke to yesterday said that he had seen my scans and he thinks, considering the shape that I'm already in and where the break was, he said he thinks that it's probably going to be 6 to 8 weeks in the brace maximum. And then obviously rehab associated with that. The negative is he can't tell me anything to do with the nerve pain. And all the physios that I spoke to told me the exact same thing, which is nerves heal really, really slowly and they don't necessarily heal 100%. So this referred pain that I'm getting through my scap and then down into my tricep, through my forearm, and then I'm getting a bit of numbness in my fingers. That may take a long time to go away, or potentially it may never go away.
So it's just a matter of time, really, isn't it? It's just a sort of a waiting game to see how you. Luckily, though, like you're one of the guys around the country that's in like really good nick. You look after yourself, like, and you've probably possibly been over the last 2 years in the best shape of your career, almost when you look back at it. So that's got to be sort of standing you in good stead. Of like you're at least. It's not like you're sort of out of shape, in shape, if you know what I mean. You're
Sure.
active. You're the way your job keeps you that way. You're everything points in the way of hopefully a good outcome.
Yeah, I would think so. I'm very confident in physically getting back to 100%. Obviously, there's no guarantees with the nerves. Re saying there, welcome to the Nerve Damage Club, Stormy. Not a club I was really hoping to join, Ree, but thank you. I get to keep you company at least, mate. So glad to be able to do that. But yeah,
I'm like in my 40s now. I'm not sure if it's nerves or I'm just old. So it's like
I don't buy. I don't know if we've had this chat before, Toddy, but I don't buy into that, mate. Just because we are the older guys in the room at wrestling, I don't buy into all this old talk, mate. I'm the oldest
guy in every room. That's the problem.
Whenever, particularly in those early days where, I was the senior guy in the room and I was the oldest guy in the room, and all the guys would always say, old man this and old man that. And I got to a point in my life in my early 30s where I felt old and my body felt beaten up. And I just, I can take a rib about the old thing, but on the larger scale, I stopped talking about myself like that, and I stopped thinking about myself like that, because you're not old at 30, you're not old at 40. Like, we have so much life ahead of us still. And I think it's a really negative way, because there's so many inferred things that go with being old, right? There's old, there's grumpy, there's sore, there's miserable. Like, people rarely say the word old in a nice way as like a way of pumping you up. Oh, geez, Toddy and Stormy, they're old. Oh, good on them. Whereas, when people want to compliment, they say wise. And I think what they mean when they say wise is old. Like, they're, the wisdom comes through having lived 40 years and experienced some things. But yeah, I just got to a point where I just stopped thinking about myself like that, and I stopped allowing other people to talk about me like that as well, because I don't think it's a good thing to hear all the time. It changes your mentality. It changes the way you think of yourself.
Although I will say, the only reason I agree, I've got like next month I've got a match with Istria at Pro League.
Yep.
And I told Jesse and Mitch, like, the only reason I'm agreeing to it, thank you. The only reason I'm agreeing to it is because then I will now hold the record for the oldest ever competitor at Pro League. And I don't think it'll ever get broken, because no one else is going to be stupid enough to be my age and still be trying to do that, I don't reckon.
There's always going to be one, mate. There's always going to be one. Who knows? Maybe Istria.
Thanks, Ray.
He's going to be fine.
All I've been saying to people. All I've been saying to people, and it's really just to annoy people. It's just like, look, as long as he knows how to take a sleeper, it'll be fine. The match will be fine. Just take my sleeper and go on. Let's go home. I'm fine with that. If I can tap out during the handshake, I will.
Yeah. Very good. How far away is that?
It's June 3rd.
Nice.
So, yeah. Luckily, I had like a good like 9 months to a year ahead. Like, I knew it was going to happen. That's half of the reason why I went through the whole weight loss thing. Because I'm like, I really don't want to go out there looking like an orange and a toothpick. Standing next to Istria.
And look,
Like,
that's been an amazing thing to watch too, man. Like as you got started, you know, you take notice and you go, cool, like Toddy's doing something to get himself in some better shape. That's really good. And it just kept going and going and going and going, mate. You've done a remarkable job. And
thanks. Yeah.
you know, I hope that in the long term too, you know, not just the motivation to get started is that you're potentially going to step out there and do a wrestling match, but you know, the long-term benefits to your health are hopefully going to be huge, mate.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I'm not sore all the time now. I used to be sore all the time. I come home from work and I would just be sore because I work in warehousing. So I'm always like, I walk 11, 12K a day on average, just around the warehouse. And because of how badly I was still doing that, but because I was eating and shit, I was just still gaining weight, even though I was walking that much every day. I just cut all of that out and like added in going to the gym as well, and it changed everything. And now I feel 100% better for it.
Ree's asking if we're getting a Rocky montage, mate. So who's going to be the coach for this Rocky montage?
Mitch and Tim are going to be coaching me through.
Excellent.
I'm fairly confident.
Yep.
Although, like, half the time I spend is like with Mitch and Tim, it's like herding cats most of the time. So I don't know how that's going to work. So, but you've had Tim over there for your super camps.
Yeah, we have. Yep.
So, how are they going? Because you've got another one coming up soon too, haven't you?
We do. Yeah. There's been a lot of interest in the winter camp. So we're already looking at getting very close to peak numbers. You know, we peaked a couple of camps ago, and we sort of had to put a cap on numbers because I thought the camp went really well, but just with large numbers, it's hard to get people enough ring time. It's hard to give enough attention to people, and you know, I would hope that the people who have come to train with me and Slats know that it's way more important to the two of us to provide a quality service and to build a good reputation for what we're doing. We're not in it as a way of like trying to thieve money from people and give them very little back. I think that's some carny bullshit that's still hanging around in the wrestling industry. Unfortunately, the presumed idea of handing over useful information at seminars and then really just using it as a bit of a cash grab instead. I think that's really sad. We, as senior people in the wrestling industry, I feel like it's up to us to try and hand the industry back in the best possible fashion that we can to give the next generation a leg up that maybe we didn't have so much at the time, you know, to pay respects to the people who offered us an education when they didn't have to. And in turn, now it's our turn to pass that information on that we've gathered as well, you know? So, I'm super confident that we are providing a quality product. And part of that is making sure that we don't just flood the room just so we can pump up our paycheck at the end of the week. But we try and keep the numbers at an area where everybody who comes there can get a quality education.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's like last weekend. I got a bit of heat because I got angry about a certain spot that happened in Melbourne.
Yep.
And that's only because I knew who the girl was. And like the reason I called her that girl is because I didn't want to name her. I didn't want to put her name out there.
Yep.
But it was the fact that like I know how experienced she is or not experienced she was, and I know the position she got put in. And like for me, I'm like, that is the 100% what we are not supposed to do as like senior people in wrestling, as promoters, as bookers, as anyone who runs like promotions. You don't put people in positions where they don't know they're out of their depth. We especially with rookies, you try and look after them as much as possible, even if that means a lot of the time saving them from themselves.
Yeah.
Because you know as well as I do, like when you were young and you're starting, like, oh yeah, I can do that. But in your head, you're like, I don't know how to do that. I'll work it out when I'm out there.
Of course. Yeah.
Because so it was just that. And that's why I get so mad, because I get protective over that. Because anything that happens, like heaven forbid something bad would have happened.
Yep.
Then what's How do you? Oh, sorry. Oh, you said you knew what you were doing. That's not on. It's on the promoters that go, look, I know how experienced this person is because I was told. So
Yep.
I'm not putting them in that position. Sorry, we're not going to do that spot. And like the arguments that really got me sort of mad was from some of the fans and some other people that go, well, she knew what it was and she's old enough to agree, and it's her body and it's her choice. And that doesn't matter. Like, fair enough, her body, her choice. Don't put them in the position where they have to make that choice.
Sure.
Is
We,
my whole
we
thing
still have
about
to have
it.
a
It's
duty.
like I just
There
don't
needs
want
to
people to
be a
get
duty
hurt.
of care at some point, doesn't there?
Yes. Yeah. Well, 100%, Ray. That like I do think the rookie has to take a small amount of accountability too. Yeah, exactly. But we also should be saying, like, sorry, you're not ready for that.
Mm.
You're
I
just
think
not.
what Ree's saying is spot on. There does need to be two sides to it, and I think often in arguments these days, of people being put in unsafe positions, and not just in wrestling, I'm talking about in general society as well, but people being put in unsafe positions, or
Yeah.
being put in a dangerous spot, or what is danger and what is people's responsibility. I think Ree's right that there is an accountability on both sides of a lot of these equations, and I do feel like often there is a sense of people being willing to throw their hands up after things go wrong and say, "Oh, well, nobody told me." And there does need to be some personal responsibility within that, whether that's in wrestling or whether that's in life. If you aren't willing to take responsibility for how did I end up here? How did I get myself into this situation? How can I make sure this never happens to me ever again? So yeah, no, there definitely needs to be accountability on both sides. That being said, if promoters do remove the opportunity or just never offer the opportunity to people who aren't ready for those roles, then the chance is kind of removed. There's no opportunity for them to put themselves in harm's way.
Yeah, I think that's more where, like, because I come from that side of it where I'm just like, I'd never put somebody in that position because I don't want that on my conscience to start with if somebody got hurt, because it was just something like, and then I'm like, oh, maybe they should have just done that. Or they just don't do the spot. How's that? Just don't do the spot. You don't have the people that are qualified to do the spot. Don't do the spot.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose anything from it. It's not ruining the show because you can't do this one spot.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, everyone gets to go home safe and happy, and nobody knew the spot was going to happen. So what are they missing?
Sure. Hey, look, I do feel like a bit of a hypocrite lecturing people about safety while sitting here in a neck brace.
As you're sitting in a brain. Yeah, but you did that taking a German, which is probably something you've done how many thousand times over your career?
Yeah.
I mean, surely you threw yourself back recklessly, as you just said, but you've done it how many times and walked away fairly safely?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how are things going over there with EPW? Because you've done the sort of like the joint thing with Schwa at the moment, sort of thing, and how's that working?
I mean, at the moment, it looks like Southern Hemisphere Wrestling Alliance been put on the back burner for the moment, and we're just focusing on EPW branded shows again. Just trying to split rosters, and more so behind the scenes rosters. Trying to split staff between two shows was just proving to be too big a challenge. So, just getting back a singular focus and trying to focus on getting the best quality product we can out there each time seems to be the priority at the moment. But venues is a tough one because we've gone from having a very awesome, steady, world-class venue to having to bounce around all over the joint again and being at the whims of different venues and different demands and whatever else. So it's been a challenging period here after a period of some stability for like maybe 3 or 4 years. But yeah, hoping, we've got our second stadium show in less than 6 months. And if that's a success, hopefully this does become a bi-yearly thing for us. The last stadium show went really, really well. Looked incredible. Show went really well attended. Everyone seemed to have a ball. So hopefully we can follow up on that and have another cracking one next month.
Explain to some of the people at home, like, because you said like venue problems bouncing around. Because I don't think that the people sort of understand how hard it is to like get venues, how hard it is to work out the venues and all of that. Because like, every time I hear is like, it's sort of like, oh, why don't you work this place? Why don't you go there? Why don't you go there? I'm like, I don't think you realize how hard that is, especially like for me anyway. And I'll just say what my thing is, because like I've wanted to do a show where I am at the moment in Queensland in Ipswich, because I think there's a market there, because there's nothing here. It's far enough away that's like, do you know what I mean? It's that.
Yep.
The problem is, and I was told this by Mitch, because Mitch lives like very close to me, and I was like, why don't we do shows here? And he's like, well, something must have happened X amount of years ago. So the Ipswich government, the local government, has said no ring sports in any venues that we own.
Yep.
Yeah. See, shit. Which rules out. You'd be amazed how many venues there are that like, that'd be perfect. Yeah, sorry, you're a ring sport.
Yep.
But like, it's hard to go, look, we're a sport, but we're not a sport. It's really hard for you guys to separate that from boxing, which is something that 30 years ago would have been like, that's perfect. Nowadays, we're like, not so perfect when we can't rent the place. Do you guys have like issues like that at all? Or is it just like, it's just a matter of like finding the right partners?
So many issues. Like, we had such a good relationship with the Gate 1 Theatre for such a long period of time. Going back to that, we've had venues that have been really steady and stable for long periods of time, and then they go away, and then you suddenly realize you're back in the venue market, and you realize how tough that is. Problems on so many levels, going back many years, like you're saying, getting classed in that ring sport category, and then having venues saying, they don't want to license your show. They don't want chairs. The chairs all need to be bound together in a way, because at previous kickboxing shows, chairs have been thrown in the ring. All these stipulations that they put on you. And if they had just, at this stage, we've been doing shows for 7 years, 8 years at the time. If they had just seen one show, they would realize that a wrestling audience largely isn't like that. They're very well behaved. It's there are so many problems. For us, one of the better venues that we deal with here in Perth, great venue. We love going to the place. It's a place that regularly has touring bands and things of that nature in there. So like, it's a pretty hip place for us to go to as well. However, because they do get touring artists and they only get one crack at a touring artist, they're going to prioritize dates for those guys over us, which means we can't book dates ahead with them. We kind of just need to wait and see what we're offered. And that makes it really hard to plot out your year. You don't know how many shows you're going to get. They might offer you 2 weekends for the year, or they might offer you 10. But they always offer it to you on short notice, which means you've got a really short run up in order to promote the show. Another venue that we're in at the moment.
And then they complain when the draw's not big, and you're like, well, you gave me how many weeks? I mean, come on.
Sure. Yeah. And then the other venue, another venue that we're dealing with, fantastic venue, but because it is laid out very nicely and they have world-class production facilities in there, costs us an arm and a leg. So, it's really difficult just finding the right partners who are willing to work with you. And particularly I found coming off the back of COVID, I thought venues would be trying to do everything they could to get shows into venues. in order to try and recoup some of the money that they lost. But it very much became, if we can't make this night extremely profitable, then we don't want anything to do with it. So we found a lot of venues were hands off, and then there's still the stigma of wrestling hanging around. That there have been particular venues in Perth in the past that wouldn't touch us just because we're professional wrestling. There's a particular venue in Perth that I would really like to get into. I've wanted to get in there for a really long time. I think we could do like a really big show there. It's a well-known theatre in Perth, and those were the exact words uttered back to us. Basically, we don't want professional wrestling anywhere near our venue.
Is it because they've had other promotions there that didn't do right by them, or is it just they've heard stories? Or
no, I think they just think they still think it's a carnival sideshow, and they don't want anything to do with it because they're a theatre.
A theatre. Yeah, I say. Well, see, that's the thing. My biggest thing is like I think I said this a while ago, is that I feel like professional wrestling is the hardest form of live theater there is, because we don't get a chance to. It's not like when you're doing, say, somebody's doing a production of Hamlet, they'll go in for 6 weeks before and they will rehearse that. Yep. So they're off book, they know everything. As wrestling shows, we could go in there week after week after week. It will be a different show every week, and we'll do that fine. And it's not, that's why I think personally, and it's probably why I love it so much, is that I think it's the best form of live entertainment that there is, because we're pretty much always doing it improv. Yeah. Aside from certain things, like, of course, there's a structure, but every week we could do a show every week, and it will be a different show. It will be live. It will be a new experience for everyone that comes out to do it. And there's not a lot of other things in live entertainment that are like that. Like Bon Jovi will play their set list every show. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like a performing troupe will do certain plays, but those plays will have to be broken up because they've got to have time to rehearse those prior plays before their thing. That's if people just took the time to look at that, I think they would realize the same thing. It's like, for me, it's the best form of live entertainment that there is nowadays, because we're an improv
stunt show.
Really, we are, Which, well, like the good ones anyway, will tell stories through it as well. So it's not just like here's these guys going out there and beating the shit out of each other. Enjoy. They're like the best part about wrestling is that if it's done right, it works with your emotions. Like it works with the crowd's emotions. It stirs something in the crowd, which nowadays is something that is hard to come past or hard to come by.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, to me, it's the one form of entertainment, because you can go to a live comedy show and you can interact with the comedian, but the comedian is there to, the only way you change the comedian's performance is that they're going to shit on you for a little bit. They're going to, once they've dealt with you, they're going to carry on with their set list pretty much just the same way that a band would. But you can affect the way that the wrestlers perform. The things you say, the reactions that you make to certain things, we hear that, we react to it, we change what we're doing with the performance in order to try and serve the people who are interacting with us, you know? So, it's one of the few unique performance arts where you go and the way that you react and interact as a crowd member has an effect on the performance.
You know, the funny thing is, we're up at a Toowoomba promotion. I'll get to Reed's question in a second. We're up to a Toowoomba promotion. I think it was about a month ago or a month and a half ago, and one of the young kids came out to wrestle. I think it was one of his third match or something like that. But the pop he got was massive when he came out. For some reason, it wasn't like he didn't have any family there. He didn't have anything. He's a good-looking young kid. We think maybe that's what it was. But I was walking past the guy who was booking it at the moment, and I was just joking because, like, you heard the crowd. I heard the crowd, and I looked at the board and went, put the kid over. He's so up. He's over here. I didn't realize he sends a note to the ref going,
Yep.
JJ's going over this match. Change the finish.
Yep.
Now, that wouldn't happen in any other form of entertainment whatsoever. Like,
No.
it's not like if the crowd starts chanting for the Washington Generals, the Globetrotters are going, all right, we'll put them over on this show.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Ree asked, do you think with the emergence of super hardcore wrestling, which I'm not sledging, I believe everything has its place, has made it more difficult for traditional companies to get access to venues?
I'll address that in two ways. So the first thing is, I'm not a fan of deathmatch wrestling. Not so much in that death matches don't have a place in professional wrestling. I believe that you can work to that in a sensible way. I just feel like, and this could be said across any company that does any sort of hardcore that has no real build or emotion to it, is it feels unearned to progress to the level of violence that death matches are kind of renowned for. I don't feel like, because most of it is just wrestler A who happens to be a deathmatch wrestler versus wrestler B who happens to be a deathmatch wrestler, and they're going to go out there and do deathmatch things to each other. But the level of violence doesn't speak to me, because for me, a level of competitive violence that I like is Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi. That's the kind of competitive violence that I like, is two people who are so extremely competitive that they almost have a hatred between them. They obviously have the idea is that they have a tremendous amount of respect between them, but they have a level of competitiveness between them that drives them to do these horrible, unspeakable things to each other. If a match has a build and then results in a death match, like I didn't even actually see the match, but Hangman and Moxley had a feud that led to a death match, and the level of intensity of their matches continued to escalate over and over and over until they got to a death match. That is kind of a sensible conclusion to where the violence is going for mine. Whereas the idea that we're just going to go in there and commit violent acts against each other just because, it's not my cup of tea. I'm more of, when I watch movies, I prefer thrillers over horror. I like having a reason for the violence instead of just this movie is going to be all about stabbing and killing, and the stabbing and killing and the gore is all that matters. That doesn't speak to me as much. But that's a personal taste issue. In terms of the venues, I don't believe that it is a deathmatch wrestling related issue. I believe it's more companies that just don't run well with the venues. They don't run a professional show in the eyes of the venues. That is more the issue. The level of communication that you have with the venue, understanding what you can and can't do in a venue, making sure that venues are left neat and tidy. I know when we've left certain shows, this venue I've been talking about that has all the touring acts, Frio Social, they're so used to everybody leaving a gigantic mess behind, and we are so used to tidying our venues to the absolute nth degree, because a lot of times when you hire venues, you are responsible for cleaning from top to bottom. You have to mop the floors, you have to sweep, you've got to empty the bins, everything has to be done. We're so used to that when we tidied up, the staff actually came through at the end and looked through and said, geez, you guys are neat. And I laughed and I said, no, we're wrestlers. We just happened to tidy our own match, tidy our own rubbish.
Yeah.
So
we're deathly afraid of losing the venues.
That's right. Exactly right. We fought so hard to get the venues that we don't want to lose them. But yeah, I don't think it's I don't necessarily think it's a deathmatch issue. I think it's having good, clear communication with your venue and the venue provider, and making sure that you understand what you can and can't do in their venue, making sure that you leave their venue in an excellent state with no damage, so that they're keen to have shows similar to yours back in the future.
Yeah, I'm very much on the same page as you. I'm very much on the record. Like, I'm not a fan of deathmatch wrestling because I think it's a whole diminishing returns thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like if the very first match someone's coming out and breaking light tubes over their head, by the end of the show, what have they got to do to get a pop out of the crowd?
Sure.
If everybody's killing themselves all the way through the show with no real, like you've said, no real animosity between two people other than the fact that I am tougher than you.
Yeah.
I think death matches definitely have their place if there's a feud that leads to the fact that these two guys hate each other to the point of I want to kill you, storyline wise, makes perfect sense. And some of the best matches you'll see are because of that. There's real emotion in it. There's real, like the crowd can viscerally feel these two people not liking each other. It's when they go out and do the stuff that some of the stuff that they do. That's when I'm just like, oh, guys, what are you doing? You're sort of like, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face because you can get so much more out of doing not as much, if that makes sense. Well, it probably does to you certainly, but like, I'm just, and that's the thing. Like, I do not hate death matches. I do not hate death matches. I hate deathmatch shows.
Sure.
Because as a concept, I don't feel that they don't appeal to me. And I know they appeal to some people. That's why I say I hate them. Go ahead and watch them. Like the whole thing when Deathmatch Down Under started, I was like, I'm not a fan of death matches. Some of the other matches you put on the cards, I really like.
Yep.
Like Istria and Jessica Troy, I could watch that every day. Because that's a good match. Like, give me good matches.
Yeah.
If like, and I think a show should have something for everybody in them. But that's just me.
Yep.
But and the whole thing with the venues is we clean the venues from top to bottom because we're afraid we're going to lose them. Because we know how hard it is for us to get them.
Yeah.
And when we do get them, we just want to go, please have when we leave them go, those wrestlers were the cleanest people we've had. We didn't have to do anything. They always clean up after themselves. They're always really polite with us. There's no one really big naming themselves. There's no one really we don't have to have disciplinary talks about with people because they just do their job. They're quiet. They're nothing like we thought they were going to be. That's the biggest compliment I think that I ever get after a show. Is, you're nothing like we thought you guys were going to be. I'm like, thank you.
Thank you. I think
thank you. But that's honestly that for me anyway. That's what it is. Deathly afraid of losing the venue, so we clean it and we look after it as much as we possibly can.
And look, that ethic that you're speaking to about, we're afraid to lose venues, I actually find that translates to all areas of wrestling as well. That, for us, when we've gone to work when you get the occasional small gig on an ad working as a stuntman, or, we've been fortunate enough to do some paid gigs where they want you to come out and do certain things, and there's requirements. The main thing we always get is how incredibly easy we are to work with. And I think that just comes from a lifetime of working in, at an independent level. There's not a lot of money in wrestling in Australia. It is very much a passion project. We want to see things do well. We want to put on good shows. We want to see the industry grow, but we're so used to getting so little that when we go somewhere and, people treat you with just the tiniest bit of respect, you go out of your way to do the best possible job that you can, because you feel so grateful that someone is giving you this opportunity, or so grateful that, there's catering here and, we're getting paid for this gig today, that it just, you give them more than their money's worth. And I think that's particularly at higher levels of Australian wrestling in particular, because of how isolated we are here and that you can't really make a living. There probably are one or two who are just living off wrestling, but there wouldn't be too many in the country.
No.
Because of that scarcity, I think you really do get a lot of bang for your buck when you use Aussie wrestlers in any other format of art that you want to use it for. And maybe that's just a starving artist mentality. Maybe it's not specific to wrestling. I can only speak to a wrestling perspective because that's where I come from.
It's also, I think, it comes from where we were trained, or who we were trained by.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I know, like, speaking for myself, I was trained by Matty, Cree, like Riot City. So you were trained to be respectful at all times. You're trained to be. I remember, like, when I first moved up here, seeing some of the guys on the shows, just thinking, who the fuck trained you? Like, when you hear them, the way they talk to someone, like they talk to a friend, they go, I would never say that to Matt. Holy shit.
Yep.
It's just, I think it's 100% like how we were broken in. Broken in's a nice way of saying how we were trained. We were trained to be always respectful. We were trained to be, I'm sure that's what it's like at PWA. I'm sure that's what it's like at MCW, their academy. I know they had their core values on the wall, that whole deal. And you guys at EPW to do that thing. So it's like, and I was thinking I was just thinking then, how hard is it now to sort of train, like when you're in training with rookies and all that sort of thing? Like when we sort of were training, if we did something wrong, it was sort of like go and do X amount of squats, or do you know what I mean? It's sort of like that sort of thing. Whereas I don't know how like today's generation take to that so much. Is it hard, or is it sort of like, because when I did, I was like, just shut up, yes sir. Yes sir. I don't know what it's like nowadays. Is it sort of like that, or do you have to take a whole different approach now because of the way that the society sort of changed?
I mean, I'm fortunate that, and I don't, fortunate's the wrong word, but I don't deal with a lot of people as they're coming into the company.
I see.
I sometimes take a chain wrestling class on a Friday night, and that's all levels. So I do deal with some of the newer crew then, but they're all respectful. You know, we're not, things aren't the way they used to be in terms of, we were, as trainers, you were gatekeepers for wrestling back in the day. Yeah. That was your job, protect the business. So, you know, famously that extends as far as Hiro Matsuda dropping a knee in the back of Hulk Hogan's ankle.
Breaking his leg, yeah.
Yep. And for us, you know, it was more a, let's put you through your physical paces and see if you really want this. But, you know, it's now more at a, the thing that's probably changed my opinion over the years a little bit against the old school mentality, and I still think there's a lot that can be taken from the old school mentality, by the way. That I credit a lot of the resilience that I have to the way that I was brought up in the industry. But at the same time, I have seen now over the years people who, if I treated them the way that I treated people 15 years ago when they walked in the door, we would have sent them packing on day one. And I've instead encouraged them to stay and have found them find their resilience through working with us over months and years. And, you know, regardless of whether they turn out to be fantastic wrestlers or not, you can see them grow as human beings, and that being a part of this community and being pushed in the ways that they have been is really important to their growth as a human being. So I guess I've changed my opinion on it a little bit over the years to, if this is a place that people can come and it is still a place of development, regardless of whether it, you know, churns out, maybe they're not going to be someone who's going to churn out a 5-star match every couple of weeks. But, you know, can we help with their development? Can their passion for wrestling grow? Can their contributions behind the scenes add to the product and add to the community? You know, all of those things are still important things that can help grow wrestling in Perth or in Australia or wherever you happen to be. And you hope that you can teach that resilience over time, you know?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, if it wasn't for that sort of like mentality, I wouldn't still be in the business at all. Because I like while I was training, I just kept getting injured to the point where like I knew that I wasn't going to be a wrestler.
Yep.
I knew my body didn't have it in me. I just, as much as I wanted it, and believe me, I really
Yep. I was wondering. Thank you, Ray.
there we go.
There we go. Bit of a lag there, Toddy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ray. No, that's the wonders of the whole not having bloody what's his name? Kind of unstable. I hate this life sometimes. It's when the NBN finally gets to my new resident. You would think when you build new areas, they would just automatically put in the NBN. Not so much. No, it's all
no.
Yeah, no.
Not
no. Why do that, mate? Why do that? We can wait for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but what I was saying, like if it wasn't for like Cree and Maddie and that saying, look, we know how passionate you are for wrestling, and that we'll find something else for you to do if you want to keep doing this.
Yep.
And if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't be still in wrestling. I wouldn't have lasted 3 years, let alone I think I'm on 13 now.
Yep.
So,
and I always say we have to be realistic too about the ways in which the industry has changed. So, you know, for me, and I was a relatively athletic kid, you know, I feel like I've maintained that pretty well over the years. But to compare me as an athlete to a Vader or a Hansen or a Brody or a Dr. Death, guys who were a legit 6'3", 6'4", and move like lightning compared to me, 300 pounds and move faster than I'll ever move in my life. You know, when Batista and Cena toured here, I could not believe how fast those guys move. They move so much better than I ever have. And they're jacked compared to me. Like, these guys are giants compared to me. And they move so much better than I do. For me to be the gatekeeper of wrestling, you know, 20 years ago, some guy like Bruiser Brody would have got a hold of me, chewed me up, and spat me back out of the industry within 30 seconds. Like, it's ridiculous for me to try and lay that unreasonable standard on other people when, you know, 20 years ago, the industry would have chewed me up and spat me out. Or sorry, 40 years ago, the industry would have chewed me up and spat me out. 20 years ago, it was very forgiving to me. And in turn, you know, I need to try and have that same understanding for the next group coming through as well. You can't always judge a book by its cover. You don't know what people are made of. And sometimes they just need to be pushed a little bit in order to find that resilience within themselves. An interesting point Ray touched on earlier, which I know is a bit of a sore spot for people, and I don't know why it is, but and this to me is the beginning of little bits of niggle and bullshit that goes on in locker rooms. To me, a healthy locker room is one where if I have a problem with you, Todd, I can pull you aside and say, hey, can we just speak outside for a second? And we go outside, we have a quick chat, and we squash the bullshit, and it's all done.
Yep.
And I think there is a reluctance these days of, you know, shaking people's hands backstage and social anxiety and whatever else. And I don't want to go back to the days where you bullied people who didn't fit in locker rooms until they left. I do not want to go back to that, okay? But coming forward and shaking people's hands at shows, that is your way of letting us know, hey, I'm on the team here. It is your way You don't like someone in the locker room? Tough shit. Don't take the booking. If you don't want to be in a locker room with that person, don't take the booking. Once you've taken that booking, you've agreed to come to work and act in a professional manner with everybody else. Part of that
Yeah.
is greeting your workmates, not creating a tense environment. You don't have to be their best mate. You don't have to hang out with them for the rest of the night, but you have to say to the rest of the locker room, hey, I don't like this person, but things are going to be cool between the two of us tonight, and none of you have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
We've had guys in the EPW locker room over the years who have hated each other and have gone to the ring together, performed together, come backstage, and everything is cool. You wouldn't have known that these guys don't get along and that they'd happily get into a fist fight out in the street if that's what was going to happen, because they would come and act professionally still, because that's what was expected of them.
Yeah.
And I think when you let standards like that slip, when people are allowed to talk shit about other people backstage at shows and nobody calls them out on it, or in turn, that person doesn't have the courage to just have that conversation with the person who they're beefing with, instead of, it's much braver to say it to 3 or 4 people backstage while the person's out in the ring wrestling than it is to say it to their face when they're standing next to you. You've got an entire night to tell them how you feel if you really feel that strongly. People want to act like tough guys and talk shit behind people's backs, but the real hard thing to do is just to pull them aside and say, your behavior affected me in a certain way and I'd like to address it with you. Cool, let's go outside and talk about it. Not everything needs to be a fist fight, but you cannot always blame like social anxiety for not taking action in these situations. That, or if you do want to blame social anxiety, that is fine, but there is still a certain level of professionalism that we need to conduct ourselves with in a professional wrestling situation. If you are uncomfortable with those situations, you do not have to put yourself there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We make the choice. We make the choice to put ourselves into this position. If there is anything about, and I'm not talking about harassment and stuff like that, but I'm saying if there's anything about the industry standards or performing for an audience that makes you anxious and doesn't benefit you, then maybe the wrestling industry is not for you.
Yeah. What do you think about, like, because I know a while ago the guy, I think Tony from On the Turnbuckle, wanted to come out with a whole industry standards sort of like guideline rule, not a rule book, but like a guideline of certain things that should be adhered to for promotions. What do you think about something like that happening, where there's like a board of people deciding this sort of thing?
I've very much been on board with this idea for a really long time. It is stuff that I would love to see. I would love to see the saying that I originated a very long time ago, that is on a EPW training shirt, is don't be shit. And to me, there should be a minimum standard for shows in terms of professionalism and the way you run. And there's so many bases that covers. It covers the way that talent are treated. It covers understanding the expectations of what you want from the performer, and in turn what the performer wants from you. Safety standards. Do you have a first aider on hand? Do you know where the nearest hospital is when you do your shows? Are you transporting your gear to and from shows in the correct way and in a safe manner and in a legal manner? Like, there are so many simple bars that we can set for people to jump over under the guise of don't be shit. Like, just jump over this minimum standard. We're not asking you to be the WWE. We're not asking you to be AEW. Just here is a minimum bar that we should all jump over as an industry. I like the idea, and I do agree with Ray that it doesn't need to necessarily be a board from on high whacking people over the head. That said, a board does help set that minimum standard of, people can work outside of that scope of practice, but then wrestlers and fans know these people are working outside of that scope of practice.
Yeah. Well, that's like I had the discussion with somebody the other week when we were talking about like, oh, well, if the promotion is that bad and they're doing all these bad stuff behind the scenes, why do people still work with them? And I said, well, it's a very good question, because they want to be booked, and I don't know why, and I don't know, like, because for me it's pretty easy. If I don't like the promotion, if I don't think the promotion is, if I think the promotion hurts what I'm trying to project as my worker's image,
Yep.
then I don't do the show. I just won't do the show. It's a weekend. I get to stay home. That's fine.
Yep.
Whereas I don't. The problem is, but not the problem, but the problem is, there's always going to be somebody who wants to fill that role. There's always going to be someone and sure, the show might not be as good, but half the times I think some of these promoters that run bad shows don't really care about that, as long as they've got two warm bodies in the ring.
Yep.
If that makes sense to you.
There is a sense of endorsement that goes with wrestlers working certain shows, though, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying speaks to how I feel as well, that, you know, you work the shows that you feel comfortable working, you don't work the shows that you don't feel comfortable working. And, you know, for me at home, I decided quite a while ago that although I had worked for a few different promotions in Perth, I was just going to work EPW from now on, and that was going to be it. More so just from a time commitment perspective, and just in trying to help continue to build something that I've been associated with for such a long time.
Yeah. Well, it's like up here now, I work 3 shows. I work Pro League, because it's Pro League. It's Jesse, it's Mikey, it's, you know what I mean? You're not going to get better than that as a group. Mm-hmm. I work Wide Bay because I booked the damn thing, so I might as well work it. and we work Atomic Pro, which is in Toowoomba, which is Mitch's hometown, which for us is a challenge because for some reason we're baby faces there.
Right.
So we call it Montreal, because everywhere else we're hated, but for some reason it doesn't matter what we do, we're loved in that place. So, and that's the 3, because I get certain things out of those things.
Sure.
Like I get, like, being a babyface as a manager, being a babyface is a challenge.
Yep.
And like for Pro League, it's Pro League. It's good to be the bad guy there. It's good to be you get some good heat there. And White Bay it's sort of my baby. So of course I want to do that. But aside from that, like, I have to see something where, okay, these guys are really trying, and they've got everything in place. I'd like to be a part of this. And a lot of the places I don't see that at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like more than ever, unfortunately, much like society too, that, you know, what Ree's saying that there are too many problematic promotions. I think it's very much, there have almost been unofficial battle lines drawn of, you know, here are places that you can venture into, here are the dark lands, and like there are wrestlers on either side of those divides sometimes, and there's very little crossing over, which, you know, the working for certain promotions is like it's a really tough one, because part of it says, if I go there as a professional, can I help raise the standard there potentially? Can I help have a positive influence? Can I carry things, leave an imprint that will hopefully be carried forward by the promotion? Maybe. In turn, am I potentially helping legitimize a product that I don't want to, or I shouldn't be? Who knows? Like it is a very tricky one of, you know, do you engage, or do you try and just ignore and hope that they go away?
Yeah, mine's sort of like, do I really want to help a promotion that's not even trying to help themselves? Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, like if I could see someone is really trying and all that, like, honestly, that's what it was like with Wide Bay, because that place had the worst reputation, I think, in Australia at the time. But it was the fact that, like, at the time, Craven and Jake wanted to work. So I went up with Jake. And then I met, like, the owner and like Anthony and Kate, and I could see they really wanted to get better, but they were just constantly being led different ways by bad people.
Yep.
When like
Sure.
you've got everything in place here, you just need to do the right things. And when they asked me, like, could you come and help? I said, of course, because you honestly you want to be better. It's the places that aren't the best and sort of think that they're the best. It's like, well, you're not trying to improve. You don't think there's anything wrong with what you're doing. Where clearly you're only drawing like 30 people. So there's obviously a problem because you're not growing. Where everywhere else I'm seeing crowds grow.
Sure. And look, I'm not for, if people want to do what they want to do, cool.
Yeah.
I suppose the issue as an industry becomes that nothing takes place in a vacuum, right? Particularly as wrestling is kind of just seen as this one thing rather than, hey, here is the wrestling show where everybody just wants to get together with their mates and having a fun time. And here's the show where everyone's taking it super seriously and they're trying to drag Aussie wrestling to a new level of professionalism. And like this, there's no real distinction between the two.
Well, I had the chat offline with somebody where they were like, "Oh, why are you constantly picking on? Why are you constantly picking on us? Why won't you just let us have our fun?" And I was like, I think I said to him, "Why would I let you hurt something that I love?"
Sure.
In the business, I wouldn't, any other business, I wouldn't let you do that. Why would I be quiet when I can see you're hurting something, an industry I love? Because it's so much, like I always say this, it's so easier to turn a fan off a product than it is to turn a fan on to a product. Like you could have someone who loves WWE, who loves AEW, come to a show, see local wrestling, and go, well, that was shit. I'm never going to one of those again. Really quick, really easy. Then have them like if they come to a show and they go, oh, it's a good show, I might come back again. Then they'll come back the second time and go, oh, that was a really good show. By the third time, you've got them hooked. But it takes you 3 times to do it. How many times are you going to see a bad movie and then watch the sequel to that bad movie? You're not, because you thought that movie was shit. Why would I want to watch that shit movie again?
To play the devil's advocate.
Yep.
There's 2 brands of cheese on the shelf. Your cheese just has to be better. Whether it's that you market the cheese better, and then when they taste it, the quality is so good that they'll never turn back and go, you know what I want? I want some cheaper cheese. You know, our job is to market our cheese the best that we possibly can and make the best possible cheese that we can. And hopefully the fans enjoy the cheese, or the wrestling in this case. And
well, a lot of it's cheese.
I don't want to try any other brand. Yeah, that's right. We're not selling cheese. So Ray posted a question earlier, which I kind of passed over at the time. But while I'm not sure the story would work in today's audience, did you enjoy playing the character of Sensei Lei in 2014 at Wrestle Clash and absolutely decimating Elliot Sexton? That was one of the funnest backstage environments I've ever been a part of, and that so many of the guys of my generation were all backstage at that show. So Sexton was there, Marcus Pitt was there, Mikey Broderick was there, Slexy was there, Rocky was there. It was just a really, really fun night. And, you know, I got to go out and play this horrible reverse racist character who was there to seek revenge on behalf of his son. So, yeah, you know, me and Edwin got to play father and son for the evening, which was pretty hilarious.
Which was like a running joke for the longest time backstage.
Yes, that's right. So, you know, just bringing it out into the open. But it was such a fun night. And yeah, Reece, you're right that, you know, trying to play on racist stereotypes the way that we did for that angle would not fly today. That said, I had an absolute blast with it. And we had a really fun night together as a team. It was just it was very much fun. And to me, this is kind of my point, is that, you know, wrestling can be silly and fun, and you can still have a locker room full of killers who do a great job and present wrestling in a really fun and professional way.
Yeah. Well, that's Wrestle Rock.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes,
like, it's not all
exactly.
like, you've got your MCWs, you've got your Renegades, you've got your PCWs, you've got all of those things, but then you've got Wrestle Rock, which in its own, it's its own little universe, which is something that offers an alternative, and that's great. That's fine when there's an alternative like that, because that's what wrestling needs. They can't all be the same. They can't all be competing in the same space. You need a little bit of like, cool, this is all the real serious wrestling. Want to have a little bit of a fun night out, R18 night out. It's not going to be politically correct, so please don't go in there if you're going to be offended pretty easily, because, you know. But that's what I think. I think that it should be able to cover the whole game. It's like comedy. There's not all comedians are like clean comedians. There's some comedians that you'll go to, and if you're easily offended, you will not go to that comedian again.
Yep,
I think that's what I think, that there should be shows that are like that, and there should be.
Yep,
there should be choices you can have.
This is my defense of deathmatch wrestling also, that it's not my cup of tea, but I'll never tell them not to do it, because
no,
it's their right to do it. And in turn, people who like that and enjoy that can go and see it. And that's their cup of tea.
I've got no problem doing it, but just like run it properly. That's all.
Yep.
That's, with your super camps and all of that, you must have now, you get to see pretty much the gamut of like wrestling around the country now, because you get people from pretty much every state coming to your camps.
Yep.
And now, just like, because I was thinking about this today, you look at the international scene where you've got like Indy Hartwell, you've got like Sexton's on NXT, Buddy Murphy, and you got all of these guys, like just like today, I think it was Cesaro defended the RH title against Robbie Eagles on the same show that Steph DeLanda was on, in an ROH show. We just had
4 Australians competing for the IWGP tag team titles in Japan.
Exactly. That, which like 10 years ago, there's no way you would have thought. Like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have thought an Australian would have won a New Japan title, period.
No.
Until Robbie smashed that ceiling.
Yep.
Being that you've seen all these people coming over now and doing these camps, how strong do you see the local industry at the moment? Is it as strong as it's been, or is it because I know there was a while there we were going through an ebb where there was sort of like a dearth of there wasn't a hell of a lot of like new young talent coming up. But I can speak for me up in Queensland. I see so much young talent up here just ready to go. And you've, because a lot of them come to the camp as well, so you would have seen a fair few of them yourself. Are you seeing that sort of around the country?
I think so, yeah. And, you know, there are hubs too, like PWA just seem to continually churn out new boys and girls who are absolutely fantastic. When their trainees come over to Perth, and sometimes not trainees, sometimes also wrestlers, they're so finely honed. Just particularly in ring, everything's so clean. Their movement is clean. They do an amazing job with their training system there in Sydney. But yeah, you do see good young talent coming up everywhere. And I think it is a time for young talent to step through as well. You know, there are opportunities in most states. And I've encouraged people for a while. Like, I think there's a real opportunity for talent around this country to try and push themselves into the Melbourne scene, which has amazing top tier talent, and the rest is still quite developing. And there are a lot of people around the country who are wrestling behind very established scenes, and it sometimes can be hard to crack through to the next level. There's a heap of young talent in Perth that I think would be doing amazing things in other states, but just at the moment they're kind of stuck behind a dearth of us old boys who are just hanging in there and clogging up the cards, mate. So it's
that, like you say that, in my biggest, like when we watch and review MCW shows, I think I said this a couple of shows ago. I can't mention which one it was. I'm like, there's a real good like upper level talent there where you've got your Mitches, your buddies now, your Slacks, all that sort of thing. But then there's a big gap between that and the rest of the card where those guys need to start coming up and start really putting their name out there. I know there's guys like Edward Dusk, who I think has all the potential and all the upside in the world. And it's good to see him on the next, like the latest couple of cards of MCW. He's starting to get that chance now. I'd like to see more of that sort of thing. And I know the biggest criticism from some around Melbourne, at least, is that like a lot of these promotions don't have enough Melbourne wrestlers in those positions. And like to that, I say, well, that's more for the Melbourne wrestlers to step up, to go, give me that shot, give me that chance. And I think that's a challenge because there is so much talent around the country now. And a lot of them will say, I'll fly myself in if I get the shot. So if you give me a shot, I'll fly myself. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a real challenge for him. And I hope, because like I said, I think Edward Dusk has the world by the horns if he gets a shot at it. I see so much in him. But I feel there's other guys in Melbourne at the moment that probably just need that little nudge. And they could do it as well. Same, I guess it would be the same with you guys in Perth as well. There'd be guys that are just burgeoning, ready to go, and it's sort of like you're just waiting to see that breakthrough moment.
For sure. There's a bunch of and it seems like every time we've had a guy who's cracked to the next level too, that they've suddenly disappeared on us one way or another. So, we had Logan Gray quite a few years ago who ascended very quickly, got to the top of the show, and then he was gone. And then Julian Ward pushed hard and heavy for the last couple of years, doing an amazing job as champion. Boom, and he's gone. You see these guys get into these positions, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and you're having to start from scratch with someone to build them up in the esteem of the eyes of the fans. And often that is more the thing. It is the wrestlers putting in the time and effort so that the fans don't feel like their crowning moment is unearned and that they've been pushed too quickly. Because when you have a roster that has Mikey Nichols, David Storm, Marcus Pitt, Damian Slater, the Don Michael Morleone, when you have a roster that has all these guys on it, you're batting from a long way back.
You also have to justify those people taking. It's like John Cena I think said in an interview, he goes, like, I'm not going to give you my spot. Come and take it.
You got to take it. Yeah.
Come and take that spot.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like Randy just said, sorry, I'll just click it because it pops up on the screen. I think the more shows Renegades book, the more Melbourne talent will develop. They're obviously prioritizing booking underused young Melbourne guys and girls. That's like now they are. That's true. The first year or so, they weren't so much. And that was the biggest criticism that I saw online about them, is it was basically it was like a mega show of Australian talent. And it wasn't really that many Melbourne people in it. The last couple that they've been booking is they are using some of that young talent, and some of those guys from please somebody remind me, what's JXC school?
Relentless.
There we go. A lot of the guys from Relentless now are starting to show up on those cards. And like if you look at those Mayhem shows, you can see there's a lot of young talent there that you can see in a couple of years are going to be really, really good. It's where BDE first started as well. And those guys have got a lot of potential as well. It's just when you're on these super camps, what's the one thing that you see in them that you're like, what's the one thing you see commonly that you need to help fix?
Authenticity. Authenticity. Everyone has an impression of what is good instead of having a honed idea of what is good within themselves. So, two examples that I can point to of that didn't need that when they came and made huge impressions when they came to the camp. Nicky Van Blair and Hayter.
Mm-hmm. Oh god, but that's not a gimmick with Hayter. That's just Hayter.
just knew themselves so thoroughly, so in and out, understood how they would behave, and were able to make a strong impression with everything that they did because of that. You can have the most amazing movement, but if you don't know yourself, you're going to struggle to make an impression with an audience. You need to understand who you are and why you exist in the world of pro wrestling. And if you don't understand that, it makes it really hard for you to translate that to an audience.
Yeah,
but
I'd like make me believe.
Yes,
make me believe. Like I can tell, you can tell when someone's faking something. Like you can tell when there's a guy that's playing a heel that's really just not a bad guy.
Sure.
Like underneath is a nice guy. Like
if you don't believe, they're not going to believe. So being able to convince an audience is absolutely the most important thing. And it's easier to do when you're being authentic, when you actually feel the things that you're trying to. That doesn't mean when you're being a heel that you have to be a horrible prick. You just have to be able to feel like a horrible prick while you're out there.
Yeah. I know there's sometimes where I've said something to a crowd and I've turned around and I look at the photographer and she's like, and I'm like, yeah, I feel really bad I said that. But at the time, that was just what I was saying. But it's Davis, you mentioned the young talent in Perth. Hypothetically, if you could send someone to Melbourne/Sydney for a Japanese style excursion, who is it?
Oh,
that's from Randy.
Jeez. Look, I've been really high on Bruno Nitro for a long time, so I've got to stick with Bruno. Although I have a handful of 5 names I could easily snatch up and throw into that mix. But yeah, if I'm going to, I always hate when someone asks a question like this and then the person offsets it by answering with 5 different names. And I could say this person, but I'm going to say this. So I'm not going to muddy the waters, and I'm going to say Bruno Nitro.
Yeah, I like. I don't mind that Solomon kid.
He's not bad, is he?
He's not bad. We lost him. I don't know where he went, but
we'll see where he shows up. Yeah,
I had him on a t-shirt, and all of a sudden he's gone.
He's another one who at the last camp, the summer camp, level of authenticity. Just when he spoke confidently in a way that you believe the things that he was saying. Such an important gift to have. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of Solomon. It's not like anyone up here doesn't know that anyway. So, I'll ask this because like a lot of people don't tell me that I don't talk about the Queensland part of it or not. Because you've had a few of the Queensland guys up there. How do you see that talent now that we have coming through?
I mean, you can see the work that the guys have put in, and the young talent in Queensland, I feel, and I'm not arrogant enough to take any credit for this, but I shook the hornet's nest for a reason a few years back. I kind of said, "Hey, Queensland wrestling, aren't you sick of being the butt of all the jokes in Australian wrestling?" And the Queensland wrestling scene has very much responded. And I feel, again, in a positive way, much like it was with EPW when we started, but there's a real chip on the shoulder of
100%.
We'll show you.
Yeah, 100%.
You think we're the bottom of the pile, Aussie wrestling? Cool. Yeah, keep talking. We'll show you. And I love that. That's exactly what you want.
Everyone except for Trinidad. He's I hate that guy. I said that because that annoys the shit out of him. He messaged me the other day because I did one of those, those stupid NGLs
Sure.
on thing. And like they're like, oh, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of this guy? And I know he did. He goes, what do you think of Trent? And I just put Trent Beretta up. I never met him, but he seems like a nice person. And all I got is a message from Trent just going, why won't you love me?
Oh dear. Yep. Yeah. No. Look, I'm super impressed with the effort that I see coming out of Queensland, and you can see the strides that people are taking and strides that the scene is taking as well. That when you finally have people involved in the product at each place that have pride in the performance, they have pride in the show, and they have pride in the performers, the place can only be a positive environment, and it can be a place where everybody can grow together.
A lot of it I've seen, and I'm so glad it is happening now, is there's no more that's good enough attitudes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whereas that's what it used to be. Oh, that's good enough. And that would always get my back up straight. It's not fucking good enough. We need to be better. We need to that's what we need to strive to be. We need to strive to be as good as we possibly can. That's good enough isn't good enough.
Yep.
If you think that's good enough, go harder.
Sure.
And like that's what it's like now. Every show that at least I'm on or I'm involved in, I see those guys now like pushing themselves to be better, or pushing themselves to at least be exactly what they need for that role on the card. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
And yeah, it's so encouraging to see. And it's only been over the last like 2 or so years that I've really seen a jump in that, where for the longest time it was like, okay, we've hit this level. That's cool. It's like, no, it's not cool. Keep going.
It's good to celebrate the wins along the way. You have to be able to celebrate the wins along the way. But just as the saying goes, don't break your arm patting yourself on your own back. Like, make sure you celebrate it, and then put the champagne glasses away and get back to work.
Yeah. This is a cool mountain to look up. This is just a ledge. On a ledge. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Yep. We've missed the giant coyote has paid us a visit.
How do you miss that guy? I don't know how you miss him.
I know. He's the brightest spark in the room.
in every room, sir. It is. I do love having him back around now. So he does come around and does. But for us up in Wide Bay, helps like MC and ring announce on the shows as well.
Awesome.
And really, really helps with you know what he's like.
Yep.
Just that positive attitude, and that it just bleeds into the crowd, which is it's so valuable to have people that are like that.
Yeah, you can't fake that level of authenticity. That when he walks into a room, he has a positive impact on the room because he's a genuinely happy and positive person. Awesome to have around a locker
room. That's right. Look, mate, I reckon we might wrap it up for this one. I want to thank you for coming on talking, mate, because it's been a really shit week. Let's face it.
It's been a
really shit week. It's not been great. And it's been really good to take an hour and a half where we didn't really think about a lot of the shit that's going on and just talk what we love, and that's wrestling. And everybody that wants to follow you and follow EPW, mate, how can they do that? Because we want to get them around it.
Explosive Pro Wrestling or EPW Perth on all the socials. For me, I'm EPW Davis Storm everywhere. We're on Vimeo, I believe. We've got a From the Vault there where we have so much of our back catalogue, and all the current shows go up there as well.
There's a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel as well. Get around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Where we keep getting strikes for copyright infringements.
For the music?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst.
Absolute killer, especially when it's playing in the background. Oh my goodness.
If the crowd could just be that little bit louder, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, that's it. Just take it from 50% to 45% instead. But yeah, look, I would be remiss if I don't say, of course, a lot of stuff has gone on this week. It's been amazing to see how many people have come out and paid tribute to Kristen. You know that, and it's a shame that people can't take pause in these moments to see that this is actually how the industry could be if we chose to see the best in all the people around us instead of always looking for the negative. That, you know, Kristen's such an exception because she was such an exceptional human being. And you know, such, again, like much like Josh, who I was talking about earlier, like just lit up the room whenever she was in there, like such a genuine,
never
caring
didn't
person.
see a smile on her face. Never didn't.
No. And, you know, to say that over the last few years that she continued to carry herself with such a sense of grace, despite all that she was going through, never took the opportunity to take her circumstances out on other people within the wrestling industry, but instead, despite all she was going through, was still this positive beacon for everybody that she had something to do with at MCW shows and at the academy. And if everybody could just try and take a little bit of the lessons that we can learn from the way that she lived and the tributes that people are paying to her at the moment, and, you know, the kind words that people who have reached out to me have said about the circumstances I find myself in. There are good people all over this industry. And are there some scumbags? Yeah, there are. And you will find scumbags everywhere you go in life. That is just something that we have to deal
found
with.
out this week on Twitter.
But there are also amazing people involved in this industry. And, you know, a bit of focus on those people and making sure that we tell those people who do have such a profound impact of the amazing things that they do for the people around them and the impact that they have on the Australian wrestling scene. The more positive light that we can shine on those people, the better it will be for all of us, not the least for ourselves. We will feel better about being involved in an industry with people who we know are quality human beings. You know, Ree being one of those people who's still in the chat.
I'll cop it for that.
He's over with me. But yeah, you know, if we can take something positive from the week, it's, you know, everybody wanted to reach out and say something nice about Kristen. Everybody wanted to reach out and make sure that I was doing okay. And if we can have a little more of that in our everyday attitude and the way that we deal with the people in the industry, I think we can build a better industry for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say anything more than that. Guys, we will be back, I think, on Tuesday where Lachlan and me old mate, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. Look, Jeff.
Oh my!
Look, do you know what it is? Because Jeff doesn't go under Jeff on Facebook.
Yep.
So I never see his name. So it's always his fucking. And if I said his other name, then it just out him anyway.
Sure.
I'll be back with Lachlan and Jeff on Tuesday. We're going to review Backlash and talk about a whole lot of other stuff. We've had a little bit of time off because, to be perfectly honest, I haven't been in a great headspace myself. And Jeff has been very busy with WrestleBrania, which has been killing it for the Melbourne Comedy Festival and all that sort of stuff. So we're very proud of him for doing that. So until Tuesday, Stormy, mate, thank you so much for coming on. Anytime you want to come on and have a chat, just let me know. Because
appreciate
I
it,
have
man.
this gimmick. I sort of have this gimmick worked out now.
Yeah.
Every now and then it drops out. Who knows? But yeah, anytime you want to come on, please let me know. I'm always want to have a chat. One of my favorite people in wrestling. One of my favorite people just to talk to. If I ever have any issues in that, like what would Stormy do, is usually front and center in my mind. So until then, guys, until Tuesday, this is Todd Eastman. We'll see you then.
with a big stand like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game, I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke slam on face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, tell like I'm to muscle. If you suffer like tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the rain, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm the general